Comfortable then, Barcelona 3, Osasuna 0 is how it finishes. Taking a look at what that means at the top of the table. All the chasing pack, all the title contenders have played the same amount of games now, and it's Barcelona who sit atop the pile on 63 points, 3 clear of Real Madrid, 7 clear now of Atleti. Meanwhile, at the bottom, Osasuna, of course, will have bigger battles ahead of them between now and the end of the season. As it stands, they are 6 clear of the relegation zone. Been a great calendar year, hasn't it, for Barcelona? 19 games, 16 wins, 3 draws, and they've looked comfortable throughout most of those victories as well. And I think it's fair to say they are, without a doubt, favourites to go on and win La Liga. As we welcome in Sid Lowe. Sid, so much talk going into this game about internationals and tiredness and scheduling. In the end, it was a layup.
Yeah, it was, wasn't it? And probably more than we expected. Now, it is true that pre-game we were saying that the form that Osasuna are in, and with tonight it now means just 1 win in 16 games, that we felt they weren't going to be able to put up much of a challenge to Barcelona tonight. They have 4 key players absent as well. But even so, I think the way that Barca moved through this game was probably a little bit of a surprise. Actually, I quite like something that Flick had said in the pre-match press conference yesterday. He said he'd been asking his fitness staff, the physios, the club's medical staff, what to do about this run of games they're going to get now. It's going to be at least 8 in the next 23 days, and then depending, of course, on whether or not they go through the Champions League and whether or not they reach the final of the Copa del Rey, this is going to be a game every 3 days for the rest of the season. And he said, I went to them and I asked them about it, and they said, you know what, boss? The players look in pretty good shape to us.
Yeah, looked fine today, didn't they?
Well, a lot of it, not all, there is obviously a scientific process to how they evaluate the players these days, but a lot of it still is the psyche. If somebody's telling you you're tired, you start thinking about it, and so sometimes that side of it works as well. The players look good, look fresh. Let's just keep going for the time being. One thing this does, though, it makes me look at that table, and we've this has been a 3-horse race for quite some time now. It's getting tougher and tougher to see a window for Atleti, isn't it? I mean, I don't think...
The only argument you can put up is the fact they don't have Champions League football anymore, so therefore they have more rest than the other two.
Yeah, and I think Barca showed us at the end of the first half of the year before the winter break that they did go in this bad run, that they did start slipping down, I think, to third. And the fact that they picked themselves up after the graphic that we showed, their form in this calendar year, they picked themselves up that disappointing end to the first half of the year and have gone again. That was the big question mark. Would that linger into the second half of the season? And I think thus far the answer is an unequivocal no. I just feel when you're in that scenario that Atleti are in, whether you've got less games or not, whether you've got a little bit more rest, the fact is that the ability to have a bad night diminishes. A bad game, a Leganés, a Getafe that we've seen recently. Those sort of diminish. You're probably one of those away from really counting yourself out. So you almost have to be picture perfect. So I think we're close to being a 2-horse race. Not quite there yet. Maybe Atleti will do some magic. Maybe Barca or Real will fall off. But this was very, very professional against a side, as Sid mentioned, that are struggling. Yes, they were a little bit more of a threat in the second half.
It's easy just to keep things ticking over. You don't have to spend that much time on the training ground. And Hansi Flick has
which we all like,
which is great when you're playing well and you're just kind of making a couple of tweaks during the course of the week. Which Hansi Flick has at no point this season, even earlier in the first half of the season when there were games coming thick and fast with international duty, etc., he never allowed Barcelona to have an excuse. He was always, we'll be fine, we're well rested, when everybody else was making a lot of noise about international call-ups and so. And I've sat here and said, you give players a reason to lose a game, 9 times out of 10, they take it. Hansi Flick has given this team every opportunity to believe that they're unbeatable. And again, given the schedule, he looks at it and says, no problem, we'll cope with it. Exactly the approach that Barcelona will. When you're in this kind of form, it's easy to paint that picture. And momentum, certainly you hope will
an open schedule is a bad thing.
Yeah.
An open schedule means you're having a bad season, you're out of the competitions, and so, what do you want? Do you want to be busy and playing more games because you're in the thick of it, got a chance to win a lot? Or do you want...
You were quite critical of Barcelona despite their win against Atletico. Talking about the space of midfield, the chances they were giving up, the fact that Atleti were in the game as much as they were. Like a performance like today isn't going to change your mind. But they are the team to beat, aren't they?
Yes.
Yeah.
No, they are. And my big question is, and you said touching it before the game and at half-time, we talk about high lines, no matter what team plays it. Is it going to... And by the way, the high line cost them 2 goals in the Atleti game. They were 2-0 down, right? More often than not, you don't come back from that. You can't have Lamine Yamal picking the top corner out all the time and doing these special things. I mean, I know he does a lot. You can't do it every game. And I think the big question will be, come the end of the season, was this productive for them all the way to the end line? Or has it, I'm talking about the defensive line, or has it been exposed, maybe semi-final, final of the Champions League, or final of Copa del Rey, whatever it is, whatever they get, last 2 or 3 games of the season when the pressure is maybe going to be cranked up, the Clásicos in sort of mid-May at the moment, those are the questions that are going to be there, and we'll get the answers. But that is my one criticism at the moment, and the top of the league, and I understand all that, is at the end of the year we'll have to say, do you know what? The risk was worth, the rewards was worth the risk.
Yeah.
Or we'll be saying it was just a bridge too far, and they get caught out in the real big moments. We're going to find those answers out.
What's interesting, Sid, is after that dip in December, they've kind of gone on a bit of a Real Madrid run. We're used to seeing the likes of Real Madrid and in the Premier League, Manchester City, put this sort of run together at exactly the right time of the season, and Barca seem to be doing exactly that.
Yeah, I suppose the question is whether it proves to be exactly the right time of the season.
Right.
Whether they maintain this now till the end, isn't it? But I think you're right. One of the things that's been really interesting about them is that when they had that dip and when they were beaten 3 games in a row at home. Now those 3 games weren't the same. They weren't beaten in exactly the same way by Leganés, by Las Palmas and by Atletico Madrid. Those 3 games played out slightly differently. There were some shared characteristics, but they did play out differently, I think. I think at the end of that little run, and I include myself in this, I think quite a lot of us felt, I wonder if this is us seeing a reality. I wonder if we'd maybe got a bit too excited a little bit too quickly earlier in the season. And I think their response to that has suggested, actually, no, we haven't. And Craig talking about that high line, I suppose one way of looking at it would be to say, what Craig's talking about, I think there is I suppose, a potential criticism at the end of the season, rather than one that's there now. Because I think some of those lessons they've learned, I think they're not playing quite as high as they were. And also, if you look at the big games, kind of so far at least, it certainly has worked. And I think you're right, that response post-Christmas has been fantastic from them.
And I'll tell you what's kind of refreshing. Compared to, say...
Sid hasn't got a book on high lines, has he? Next to him on his right-hand
lots
side.
of books there.
Success and failure rate of a high line.
Like, we've seen a lot of big clubs play some really mediocre football this season. I'm thinking Arsenal, I'm thinking Chelsea, obviously Manchester City are very much in that conversation as well. With Barcelona, you know you're at least going to be entertained for the 90 minutes.
I think it's safe to say Real Madrid have played some mediocre football.
Yeah, most definitely.
Although they are doing what Real Madrid do and hover around and hang in there and get the cavalry back from injuries and suspension and whatnot, and who knows what's going to be there at the end of the year. It's undeniable. Whatever happens at the end of the year, Hansi Flick has transformed the way that they go about it, the way they play, the pace in their play. He has utilised, and let's not forget, he lost 2 or 3. Was it young Marc Bernal? He lost. He was playing kids early in the season.
Yeah,
Valencia,
at the beginning of the season.
Valencia match day 1. Casado and Bernal in midfield, but young Bernal does his cruciate a couple of games later, or whatever it is. He put his trust in the kids, and that has a reverberation around the rest of the club and the dressing room. Say, look, the manager's, he's not frightened, He's not frightened to put the kids in, and I think there's a real confidence. It seems to me. And again, it's man management. There's a real, from the players looking at the manager and going, we like what he's doing. Right. We like what he's saying. We like his training. We like how he approaches things. We generally like what he says in the press conferences. And players, players sometimes look at that. And I think Hansi Flick and Jurgen Klinsmann, our colleague, has talked about it. The one thing, coaching apart, that Flick has got, according to Jurgen, is he's got great man management skills. And I'm always a great believer in, coaching and tactics is a certain percentage of any professional sport. But if you don't have the people skills to manage these big dressing rooms and superstars, you're absolutely screwed because players will turn against you. And when players turn against you, they do not perform.
And one player who I think you can very much have that conversation about, Sid, is the way in which you felt that Lewandowski and Xavi never really clicked compared to a Lewandowski now under Flick, who's got 36 goals already this season.
Yeah, and I like the way that Flick responds to this. And obviously he's not really had to in the last couple of months, but at the start of the season, when people were surprised at how well Lewandowski played, Flick's response kept being, well, this is the same Robert that I've known for years. What's the big deal? This is just, Lewandowski doing Lewandowski things. Now, it's true that last year the sense of connection between him and the manager of Xavi wasn't really there. Indeed, part of Xavi's belief that one of the things that Barcelona needed to grasp the nettle on, which was the future of Lewandowski, and whether actually it was time to move him on, whether actually it was time to go for a different forward, was part of what kind of contributed to the breakdown in the relationship with Joan Laporta. And I think one of the things, and this point then leads on to what Xhaka was talking about and what Craig was talking about, that idea of confidence. Right from the very start, Flick has had this attitude that says, there are no excuses, we've got good players, we're going to do this and we're going to enjoy it and we're going to play and we're going to go for it. And we're not going to be here kind of grumbling about things. And I think that positive attitude, of course, it only takes you some of the way. If your team's not good enough, you're not going to win the league, however positive you are. But I think that has changed the environment for a handful of players. And I think Robert Lewandowski is a really good example of that. And I think the other really, really good example of it is Pedri in midfield. A player who looks fitter, who looks happier, and seems to be enjoying the game from a slightly deeper position more than he ever has before.
Let's not forget, just briefly, it wasn't only the Lewandowski factor with the relationships last year. You had the other senior player in the middle of the park, in Gundogan, publicly,
on more than one occasion,
publicly criticising youngsters, and then criticising Ronald Araujo for his red card in Paris. That festers because we all have when you get young players that come into the side or young players that are in the side, no matter how talented or experienced they are, they make mistakes or they do things. You deal with it. I think, Shaq, you deal with it in-house, in the dressing room. But because it was public, I just felt that added to the festering issue that Xavi had in that dressing room.
Also, speaking of Robert Lewandowski, I remember at one point last season, and I was very critical of him, in one game, I can't remember which game it was, where Lamine Yamal didn't get him the ball and he kind of waved away any approach from Yamal on the park. And I felt Lewandowski, as a senior player, as a leader within this team, given his experience, given the youth of everybody else around him, I thought that was him shirking the bigger picture to his duties. This game's a great example. Great ball by Ferran Torres, but he straight away goes across. And for me, that's the Lewandowski that not just Barcelona needs in terms of finishing off those chances, but those young players need from him. That leadership, that understanding of their roles. And that's when Lewandowski at his best. And when he's at his best, Barcelona, as you see, seem unstoppable.
And it was mentioned in the commentary, I think, that there's a realisation, quite an easy one actually, from the manager, that I don't need Robert Lewandowski to be running about like a headless chicken, chasing the ball. If he does it now and again, fine. But I don't need him dropping in there. I don't need him running the channels so much. I need him, as the manager said, as Hansi Flick said, to do the Lewandowski things, which he's doing for years, which is to be at the right places, to make the right 5 or 10 yards runs, to link the play up. And if you're looking for players at that age, with that experience, to go and chase all over and press, you're probably going to lose them sooner rather than later. And I think that was also, I think there's many reasons that it went a little awry for Xavi. But certainly, when you're alienating senior players like that, it doesn't help.
Barca, of course, with 2 days off now, ahead of their clash against Girona on Sunday. Lazy. Meanwhile, Real Madrid are in action against Leganés. Those games, of course, all live on ESPN+. This time last year, we're talking about Xabi Alonso. Was he going to Liverpool? Was he going to Real Madrid? Was he going to stay at Bayer Leverkusen? He, of course, announced that he was going to stay. He was asked about his future ahead of the clash against Bochum tomorrow. He said, "I've not taken any decision. It was a different situation compared to last year. There was something to decide, and now there isn't. There's no deadline. I remain focused on this season. We don't want to speculate about anything beyond football." Well, you may not, but we do. As Derek Ray joins us, Sid Lowe as well. Derek, what does your heart say about this? Where do you think Xabi Alonso will be at the start of next season?
I think, Dan, I am where I was when you invited me onto the show a few weeks ago. For me, Xabi Alonso will probably be the Real Madrid coach next season. I can understand, though, why he doesn't want to say anything about it. Why should he? He's right. Last season was different. He had two very big clubs in Liverpool and Bayern courting him because they needed managers or head coaches at the time. And this season is different. It's all shrouded in a bit of mystery, publicly anyway. I think that he really does want to be the Real Madrid coach. Why would he not want to be the Real Madrid coach when you consider where he's from? And if you look at his body of work with Leverkusen, it's been sensational. Last season, of course, surprising everyone. This season, too. I mean, if they go on and win the DFB Pokal, there's a good chance that they will. If they finish second, they could pit Bayern at the post. It's a long shot, I would say. It is maybe doable, more doable than it was after their comeback victory over Stuttgart, but everything is going pretty swimmingly for Xabi Alonso. So I think playing a straight bat as he did at the press conference today was absolutely right. He has no need at all to talk about what he's going to be doing next season. At the same time, we can speculate, and I would be surprised if he decides that another season for him in Leverkusen is in order. And I say that because I think there will be a big summer of change coming up. I think a lot of players will leave. I think maybe the culture at the club could change a little bit, and perhaps the only way is down. So he doesn't need to say anything about it, but I am, as I said, where I was a few weeks ago, probably Real Madrid, even though we don't know, and Sid would certainly know better than I, we don't know publicly what's going to happen with Carlo Ancelotti at Real Madrid.
He never calls now, never writes.
Who, Derek?
Derek.
Another disgrace for that.
You're always having to go at him for his German.
Oh, I'm always having a go.
Why would he do that?
I've been having a go at him for years.
Oh my
It's just.
I'm sorry, I didn't realise there was going to be a personal relationship counselling section.
Oh, you need counselling to be on this show.
Well, yes, that's very true. Sid, Derek says that Alonso's definitely going to Real Madrid. Carlo won't like that.
Do you know what? This is one of the amazing things about Carlo Ancelotti. Carlo won't mind. I mean, genuinely, this is one of the reasons why there isn't that sense of pressure, why there isn't that sense of hurry. I think because you've got two men involved in this particular equation who neither of them feel the need for big and radical and rushed decisions. Completely agree with Derek about Xabi's mindset, which is that you win the league last year. You want that opportunity to take the team into the Champions League. You want the opportunity to take it beyond just like feeling like you've done one great season. You're not in a hurry. Last year, I remember there being lots of talk about, well, Xabi Alonso's never going to get this opportunity again when two teams as big as Real Madrid and Liverpool are after him in the same summer. Xabi Alonso doesn't need two teams after him. He needs one team after him at the time that suits him. So now it's true that Liverpool job possibly isn't there anymore because Arne Slot's done so well. But the Real Madrid job is always a few games away from being there. There's a timing thing with Ancelotti, which no one really thinks Ancelotti stays on forever. Ancelotti himself accepts it now if he's nudged to the side or if he's encouraged to go. Ancelotti has always said he will not resign. When he goes will be when Florentino Perez decides it, and he will accept it. He will not make it difficult. Now that slightly disguises something, which is that he too knows, and at certain points of this season has felt very clearly, okay, the time is right, but let's do this in a calm and rational way. And I think we're in a situation in which you've got two men who are kind of, their interests kind of coincide, even though that sounds like a ridiculous thing to say. Because how can their interests coincide if they would both quite like to be the Real Madrid manager next year? And it's because neither of them are in a position where they're absolutely desperate to force the issue either way.
Is the time still right, though, Sid, if they win?
What are you looking at me for?
Well, I'm just saying.
I'm not Sid.
I'm confused.
Yeah.
Is the time still right, though? Well, is the time still... Shut up. Is the time still right?
What do you think, Sid?
If they win La Liga and the Champions League, does it change the narrative?
Well, look, I mean, this is one of the sort of contradictory things about this. And Ancelotti, remember that period, what we're talking about now, is it 12 months or so ago, when Ancelotti was talking to the Brazilian Federation and he actually I think personally made the mistake of publicly saying, yes, I'd quite like to do this. He'd been talking kind of semi-openly with Brazil, and then he admitted it, and he said, well, you know, it would be nice, it's an opportunity, it's something that's very interesting. At that point, it was because, put bluntly, Ancelotti assumed, well, look, at some point this lot will sack me, and then I'll go to Brazil and it'll be fine. And of course what happened was he kept on winning, and they didn't sack him. And I think part of the problem there in part was because Ancelotti had kind of publicly, if you like, entertained this idea. Bizarrely, and contradictory though this sounds, there was a kind of a determination from Real Madrid not to sack him. Now, let's not give him what he wants if that's what he's going to do. And of course, Ancelotti has this terrible habit of keeping on winning. Now, I do think it's like the reason why I was talking about a contradiction is because if Ancelotti doesn't win the Champions League and La Liga, then there's a sense that, well, they change him. And that's just what Real Madrid do. That's what the demands are at Real Madrid. Equally, if he does, he's in a position, even though he himself has said, I won't be the one to go, he's in a position where he can basically say, you know what? Okay, it's time.
Dorival Jr., of course, on the brink of getting sacked as the Brazil coach. The Brazilian FA have made no secret the fact they want Carlo Ancelotti in, if indeed he is available.
Deja vu all over again.
It is deja.
Whenever you talk about Brazil, no matter the era you think, there's a World Cup coming up, they're going to be, you know, the samba again and all the colours, and they're going to be in there mixing it. They're a long way from that with this squad, and at the moment, this manager, if he even makes it that far, which looks unlikely.
For most teams in the world, losing to Argentina is not that much of an issue. For Brazil, it absolutely is. For Brazil to lose to Argentina in this fashion, I thought you can't continue with Dorival Jr. as it is. They stuck by him for an extra 12 months, given a lot of discussion that we were just talking about last year about Carlo Ancelotti. And things have regressed. I cannot tell you that I've ever seen Brazil look this inept. Something has to change quickly. Thankfully, because of the expanded format, Brazil will qualify for the World Cup, but that is just papering over the cracks around the expectation around a Brazilian national team. Because never mind just qualifying for the World Cup, Brazil are expected to win it every single time. This team quite clearly, absolutely can't.
Like all countries in the world, there is a fascination about Brazil, Sid, obviously particularly in Spain, given if you're Barcelona, you're looking at Rafinha, if you're Real Madrid, you're looking at Vinicius Jr. What's been made of how horrible they were against Argentina?
Well, I mean, obviously the first thing, as you say, is how horrible they were, how poorly they played, how little structure there was, how little sense of intensity and attitude there was, how easy it was for Argentina to pick ways around them. But I just wanted to pick up on one particular element, because given that you've asked me about specifically the Spanish angle, maybe I'll stop short of actually naming the newspaper. But this is a great insight to how things work. In the build-up to this game, Vinicius against Argentina. The Brazilian Vinicius is on a great run. He's playing Argentina. That's one article. He's playing Argentina. The next one is headlined around Vinicius and his Brazilian pals, you know, to take on the Argentinians and to qualify Brazil for the World Cup. And then the next article is, again, it's a picture of Vinicius and it's circled. Brazil then go and lose. The headline says, Rafinha's Brazil gets a beating.
Very good. Maybe a Madrid-based newspaper. Of course, the international break certainly took its toll, didn't it? Meanwhile, on Bayern Munich, this is something we discussed yesterday at length, the fact that Upamecano's out, as is Alphonso Davies, of course, putting that cruciate ligament out for the season. What's been the reaction in Germany to this? Obviously, a lot of discourse. His agent coming out, having to go at Canada. Canada defending themselves, saying that, in fact, he did want to play. How's this been covered in Germany, Derek?
Yeah, there's certainly concern in the Bayern camp and amongst Bayern fans, and with good reason. Alphonso Davies is a key player, and you can't replace him necessarily like for like in terms of his style. And the fact that he's going to be out for 6 months or more, that is a real blow. You can add Dayot Upamecano to it, although they do have cover in central defence. Manuel Neuer hasn't quite come back from his latest injury as quickly as most people had hoped. So Jonas Urbich, the young goalkeeper who made a mistake, it must be said, in the last game against Union, will have to play again for a bit. And so it's a case of trying to come up with the right formula for a few games in defence. I don't think Bayern have a problem from middle to front. If you think about how well Joshua Kimmich and Leon Goretzka played for Germany during the international period, absolutely lights out. Olise has had a terrific season, left-footed player coming in off the right-hand side. Musiala needs no introduction. And Harry Kane, even though he hasn't scored in, 5 Bundesliga games now, did score for England in their 2 matches. So I wouldn't worry about Bayern's ability to score goals. But we saw, remember, recently against lowly Bochum, that they can concede 3 goals at home, and so they've got to be careful, starting with St. Pauli, the next opponents, Augsburg after that, who are on a really good run. And of course, the complicating factor for Bayern in all of this, and it's a good problem to have, but it still makes it complicated, is that they desperately want to win the Champions League at home. Never a week goes by without Bayern talking about that, about the final at home. And Bayern want to make sure that they get it right this time, when you think back to when last they hosted it, that season when Chelsea beat them in the final. But in the Bundesliga, I've given up trying to decide what's a difficult game and what's an easy game, because in recent times for both Bayern and Leverkusen, it's gone, if you like, against the head. And so it could be any number of games, could be any one of the games that could end up being problematic for Bayern. It's a 6-point lead in the Bundesliga. Yeah. It's effectively 7 with the goal difference, Dan. But I'm not certainly of a belief right now that you can say, yeah, Bayern are absolutely guaranteed to win the title. It's a long shot in terms of Leverkusen doing it, but it's not absolutely signed, sealed and delivered.
As you mentioned, of course, so much focus on their Champions League chances, given where the final is. How would you divvy this up percentage-wise of Bayern getting past Inter, Derek, considering the news this week?
Well, I was listening to Karl-Heinz Rummenigge talking about it, and of course he has very strong connections in Italy with Inter, and he says that Bayern are not the favourites. Now, that's Rummenigge just being Rummenigge and being a bit cautious. I think it's probably in Bayern's favour, but when you look at the nature of Inter and the way they play, they could be a really tough nut to crack, with the first leg being in Munich, and, Inter at the moment, just reading what's going on in their camp, they do have a number of injury worries, which they hope will clear up. Lautaro Martinez, Marcus Thuram, of course, can be formidable players. Thuram needs no introduction to Bundesliga fans based on what he did with Gladbach. I think that it's one of those games that people would look at and think Bayern should win, but it has that banana skin quality about it. And so I would say it's about 55% Bayern. I don't know if Craig and Shaka would go along with that.
I was going to move on, but I suppose, yeah, go on.
Well,
55-45?
I don't know, Sid.
You do, he's here.
Perfect.
Yeah?
Yeah.
You got Bayern as favourite.
I got Inter to go all the way.
Don't you have Inter to go through?
So,
Don't you have Inter to go through?
He's forgotten.
I guess. I'll take your word for it, Dan.
So Bayern the favourites, but Inter to go through.
Derek, it was much more professional when you used to host this. I apologise for taking
it certainly wasn't.
Dragging it through the mud. Derek, what games you got this weekend? When can we see you on ESPN Plus?
Leverkusen against Bochum tomorrow, the first game back after the international break, and then Bayern on Saturday against St. Pauli. So we'll see the top 2 Friday and Saturday respectively, and a lot of good games there. And look out for Mainz as well, because they are a team going places currently in third. What a story it would be if they could make the Champions League for the first time. Dortmund, their opponents, in trouble, as we know.
Welcome into the latest edition of Extra Time. The producer said to me, shall I make Sid stay late for Extra Time? And I said, yes. So you're welcome, Sid. It's all on me.
Thanks, Dan.
Oh, it's only 5 hours at the moment. The clocks haven't gone back yet.
Yeah, but he's knocking on a bit.
Yeah, I'm delighted. So is everyone in the house. The dog who's trying to sleep on the floor 2 meters away from me keeps looking at me as if to say, why are you still talking?
Oh, can you show us the dog, Sid, or will it just ruin everything?
Sid, it's not just the dog that's thinking that.
Why, if I get up... I could, but then she might stop. Do you really want me to?
Yeah, it's almost definite. I want to see the dog.
Okay, all right.
Just get the dog off.
No, I thought he was going to turn the camera. I see. He's just gone to get the dog.
It's a much better view, you said, actually.
Here we go. Oh, poor dog. Sleep. Right.
Come on.
Right, this is live, Sid. Come on. Shall sing a song or something?
Oh.
Hey, there we go. That was worth every moment.
Oh, it was.
Wow.
Oh, look.
Put that on the invoice, Sid.
What, the dog?
Yeah.
Expensive.
That's an appearance. That's an appearance.
Are they laughing at you?
Sid,
look at
Sid,
that.
what breed of dog is that, Sid?
It's a Spanish water dog.
Oh, and what's the name?
Rossa.
Rossa. Beautiful. You got a dog as well, Shaq?
Yeah, another dog.
You
Got 2 dogs.
Oh, right.
Right?
Yeah.
There we go.
You've gone the opposite of the.
I've got small
the Nickel
dogs.
household.
Yeah. Yes.
I've got a Dachshund
So-
and a Yorkie and Maltese mix.
So how,
So she is tiny.
how big will she get?
10 pounds.
Wow.
But the only thing
Be
is, like,
careful.
he's got a kind of medium-sized dog. I've got 3, medium to large, not like Stevie's bears.
Yeah.
Yes.
The only thing is, I suppose, is it a tactic that the dogs are so small you'll be ridiculed if you were seen walking around Boston with the dogs on a leash?
Well, no, they don't want to walk around Boston for starters.
Do you take them around? Do you have a man bag?
No,
you can't have a man at
they
6
just
foot.
go out in the yard and they don't want to go anywhere. They're fine.
Well, how do you know?
Well, maybe they want to go for a
they
little
told me.
walk with
You
you.
can't have a
Shaq.
6'5" man out every yard walking around with a 12-pound dog. A 12
They're
ounce
lovely.
dog.
24 pounds. It's 2.
You just can't, Sid. Don't look right.
Here we
Something's
go.
Not right about
Sid, you're a Real Madrid fan and a Liverpool fan, so this is apt for you. Are you worried about Trent's defending, or are you happy about his passing and going up when he'll sign for Real Madrid?
Well, do you know what? When the conversations first started happening about the possibility of this move, this was one of the things Real Madrid were contemplating, whether Trent was the right profile of player in terms of being that defender that, to use that lovely Ancelotti line, Ancelotti talks about wanting pessimistic defenders. People who go onto the pitch and worry about the worst thing that can happen and defend and focus on that. And I think Trent, is fair to say, is a very optimistic player. He plays looking forwards. He plays in terms of his own qualities rather than being entirely focused on the defensive side of things. Obviously, a couple of things have changed. One was the injury to Dani Carvajal. Not so much because it says, right, he's injured, we need somewhere else, as it's a kind of a reminder, if you like, of those risks. And so I think there is a slight concern about his fit there in a team that's really, really attacking. It might mean that they're more inclined, I think, to go for a fully defensive left back to try and balance that a little bit and to try and shift the nature of the role that Alexander-Arnold plays.
Sid, just quickly, they were discussing yesterday who starts if Carvajal's 100% fit.
To be honest, I think Carvajal does, but I wouldn't be at all surprised to see some way of trying to fit the two of them in there. And I think it's actually, this is a question for Trent, perhaps. I think it's going to be very, very interesting to see how Real Madrid try to structure their midfield next year. Because, of course, they would like to buy a number 5, a defensive pivot, but a defensive pivot who can play the ball. You know, someone like Zubimendi, and they're obviously keen on Zubimendi. Then you've got to find out what your role is for Fede Valverde, who's a very athletic, very dynamic midfielder. A role for Camavinga, who's also a dynamic midfielder, but also technically very good. Tchouaméni, who in theory is your defensive stopper. Ceballos, who's been your ball player this year, but I suspect doesn't play very much next year. Modric, who probably won't be there next year. So does actually Trent end up playing a kind of a ball-playing role, either in a midfield 3 or a 4? So I think it's not impossible that we see Carvajal and Trent in the team at the same time.
Oh, that was quite a long answer.
Well, that's what I was just thinking that. He's free to go now. Free to go now, Sid.
He stays up, he's got a detailed answer. It's ridiculed.
He's not seen this movie, is he? Where we just ridicule the questions,
With
keep it short.
Saka, with Saka back for Arsenal, Shaka, pray for Real Madrid or Ala Madrid?
Nah, so the Madrid are favourites.
Right, you remember this, do you? You remember your pick for that game?
Do you reckon Saka's going to be back?
Did I go
Yes,
with
he
Madrid?
could be back for the
No, we're
Fulham
in
game
Madrid.
midweek.
But we're looking at a risky fitness issue as well, and it's
Let's get back. Madrid's still favourites.
There we go.
Yes, I definitely have them.
I wanted to say hello to Shaka.
Oh, hello.
hello.
I played on an under 23 team with him in DC right after he left Howard University.
No, you'll remember that, won't you?
I was the backup goalkeeper and Shaka was a great guy and enjoyed being on the field with him. That's from Adam. Shaka's empty look suggests that he has absolutely no memory of you,
Can't
Adam.
remember he had Inter his favourites over Bayern Munich. How's he going to remember? You don't remember? Your colleague.
I played an indoor game right as the left Howard. That's
Okay,
I
well-
really remember.
But you don't remember Adam?
No, sorry, Adam.
I tell you
poor
what,
Adam.
Shaq. He's watching the show.
You're supposed to be man of the people.
You could have
Out of
won.
all of us.
You could have. You could have
Yeah, I
won
remember
that.
Adam.
No,
Good lad, Adam.
don't. Can Shaka confirm that he gets commission every time he slanders Manchester United?
I take Craig's commission. I got cut off with Craig.
Oh, it's been nice not having to talk about them for a while. Which team is more likely to win a trophy this season, Craig?
Yes.
Manchester City, Manchester United or Spurs?
Manchester City.
The FA Cup?
Yes.
Yep, United and Spurs. There we are. For Sid, now this was a bit rude, Sid. This was Craig, obviously.
Okay.
He said, do you agree with Craig that when you, Dan and Luis were together in Madrid a couple of weeks ago, you're so short that you three could wear top hats and still walk under a bed?
Well, I mean, the question here is,
I just
how big
noticed
is the
it.
top hat and how low down is the bed?
No, I was surprised, said that, and I was surprised you three were in on the outside set, yeah?
Yes.
In
Yeah,
Madrid.
pitch side, yes.
And I was surprised how levelled off everyone
Yeah.
was. I was expecting
See,
some...
when people meet me, they always are surprised that I'm not as short as they think
And
you
the
portray
way
me.
that-
Yeah.
Oh, Beavis.
No, honestly.
That did lead us to the theory, said that Dan, I mean, each their own, was wearing high heels.
They would have had that.
He was definitely wearing Cuban
Who,
heels.
who am I to criticise?
This
Who's
is
taller
Craig-
between you and Sid?
This is Craig who said that Lamine Yamal was towering over us, which I think...
He was.
He was not towering
He was
over
towering
us.
over
There was
two of
definitely
you.
no towering.
Oh.
That was one of the biggest custard pies
Dan, I don't-
you've ever had.
Well, the Luis Garcia back. Oh dear.
I don't know whether we should admit this, but obviously post game where we were at the Metropolitano the other day, you got a little table there, and of course we're facing the cameras. To our right, as we looked at the cameras, there was a TV channel there, and I'm obviously not going to name the player because it would be very rude. But they had two players who were slightly different heights, in fact, significantly different heights, and one of them was standing on a box.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. I didn't have a box. There was no box for me.
Tell you what though, and I know Sid and Luis have interviewed him on more than one occasion, but I would really have loved Alexander Sorloth to come over and stand right next to you.
Yeah, that would have been.
Oh, it would have made my night. I would have laughed.
A Sorloth, a Courtois, someone like
I was
that.
telling Craig about our photo shoot.
Yeah.
Yeah, oh yes, when we were back
That
to
was
back.
so
That's when it
funny.
was-
Oh, boy.
when I worked in Southampton, Peter Crouch was a signing, and I interviewed Peter Crouch.
Oh, boy.
There's no pictures of that. That would be quite something. Okay, Sid, looks like you have every footballer's biography ever written. What are some recommendations besides Stevie's, obviously? And you can't say Luis Garcia because you wrote
Obviously,
you wrote Luis Suarez.
Okay, I mean, I suppose it doesn't count as an autobiography because he didn't write it himself, but the book about Thomas Enke is
yes.
desperately sad,
Yeah.
very, very moving, and a completely brilliant book. The book I've enjoyed most, I sort of not sure if I should recommend this because it's in Spanish, but for those of our viewers who read Spanish, there's a guy called Zuaith Gurruchaga who played for Real Sociedad. Was part of the team that finished second in the league title, and his job now is stand-up comedian. His autobiography
yes.
is very, very good indeed.
Martin Einstein did a Bicycle Diaries with him, which is available over on YouTube, as you say. It's good.
Did he?
Yeah,
Right.
fascinating career change.
I don't know how people find out the time to read all these books.
You've got quite a lot of spare time, Craig.
No, not really.
No?
Certainly not enough to
No.
read all those books.
Why are you chewing on your glasses to try and pretend you're sophisticated as if you do read books?
I've read books.
For Craig, what was the
I've
atmosphere
read one.
like when you played Hearts at Tynecastle, made the trip to see Hearts play back in 2018 when they beat Celtic 1-0, and when the goal went in, it was louder than some 100,000-seater stadiums?
Well, actually, you know, Heart of Midlothian, Tynecastle's one of the grounds in Scotland that does generate a very good atmosphere. I don't know the capacity, but it's not huge.
Right.
I'm going to say it's a tad over 20,000. But again, it's the way that it's not really been rebuilt, and you know we see these modern stadiums.
Yes.
So it's the
It's
way
like
that.
Sid's answer.
All right. The answer to the question is, it's always a really good. I always enjoyed going to play at Tynecastle against Hearts with Celtic because the atmosphere was excellent.
Good. Here we are.
We'll talk about the building after. Like, as I was interested.
It's the way the ground.
I wanted to hear.
It's the way the ground
Oh,
is
the
formulated.
architecture of
It's
the
like,
ground.
Celtic Park.
Yeah.
It's the same thing. It's because the stadiums the stands are so close to the ground, but they're banked very steeply. It creates that fantastic atmosphere, which is not fantastic when you're losing the game and you get belters.
Final question. Look, how about this, Sid? It's 1998.
Oh, okay.
You can go out with Craig and the Chelsea boys in London, Xhaka in his Maserati around Newcastle, or Dan in Southampton.
You can roll that one out.
Yeah, exactly. Who are you picking?
Listen. This is so easily fixed, isn't it? Did he say Xhaka in a Maserati? So I got to Newcastle.
Quite.
Get in the car with Shaq, drive down the A1, pick up Craig and the Chelsea boys in London, and then head off down to see you on the south coast.
Sid, keeping everyone happy.
Southampton's not that bad, is it? As a night out.
No, it's good.
Yeah.
It's much better than Portsmouth. You want to avoid
No,
Portsmouth.
no.
Yeah, don't go there.
Oof.
Newcastle will be good this weekend, you were saying?
Yeah, and it's a parade on Saturday.
Yeah, you were saying that.
Xhaka. I heard you answer you prefer to be in Newcastle and Carnival.
What?
You were asked on extra time which you would prefer after they won the Carabao Cup. And you said
Yeah, well, right then. Yeah, right then. Well, because Carnival is every year.
Right.
Newcastle winning the title is,
Yeah.
Every 50.
yeah.
Here we go, Shaq. Oh, where's your power rankings? You need to do them tomorrow. International power rankings.
No.
Yeah, definitely. We need something to do
There's
tomorrow.
been international games, so there's no club power ranking.
Oh, there we go.
There's no sense.
Okay. We're just hearing Dani Olmo is out for 2 weeks. Expected to be out for 2 weeks. There we are. Anything else?
I was waiting for that.
For?
I said.
Sid, Dani Olmo's out for 2 weeks.
What's your dog?
Well, the way the
Big Rosa.
the way the fixture list is at the moment, if Dani Olmo's out for 2 weeks, that's him missing what, 25 games?
Yes, that's very true. Yes. There we go. Okay. Yes. That is it. That brings us to the end of today's show. We'll be back tomorrow for Shaka's World Cup power rankings. Yes, Shaka.
No.
Yes.
Not at all.
Will it be Brazil or Spain or Argentina?